I'm just a basic millionaire next door kind of guy. I have a pretty modest house, and I drive a 2001 Jeep Cherokee that I paid $12,000 for, over 20 years ago. I never had a car payment or anything like that, and been kind of that simple investor index fund kind of guy.
You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their current portfolio allocation. Now to your hosts, Clark Sheffield and Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 220. Happy New Year to you, Clark. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Happy New Year to you as well.
Doing great, man. This time of year is it's exciting and it's interesting. We were just talking a little bit before the show, and I was telling you how this is one kind of year-end exercise I always do, and in addition to kind of reviewing my goals on a quarterly basis, but also on an annual, putting together the net worth spreadsheet, and which I actually do monthly, but at the year-end I kind of adjust real estate and some other things. But looking over beneficiaries and insurances and trust documents and will documents, and I do this every year and have for quite some time now. And you know what's funny? I had some mistakes from last year that I caught this year. So I went through those.
Like
just some minor things. One thing is I did have an additional child this year in November, so I needed to update for that, which wasn't a mistake per se as from last year, but just some of the percentages that I had allocated and the way I had broken some things up were different from the way that I had essentially put it in the will, and some other things. I had to kind of redo some of the paperwork, and it's still not finalized, but I caught an error. Minor stuff. I mean, not a big deal, but it's why you go through that stuff every year, because even though I still made a mistake last year, and those that reviewed it obviously didn't catch it either. So do you do anything like that every year?
And most of our listeners probably know, but even if you don't have a will, if you go into your Fidelity or Vanguard or whatever brokerage account, I assume it's the same for both or for all of them. I use Fidelity, but you can go in and set your beneficiary. So
yep.
Even if you don't have a former will, you can go in and I believe under Fidelity's, at least, I could be mistaken here, but I think it's separate for each account. So you have to go in and designate it for all your different accounts within Fidelity. And then you can designate a primary and a secondary beneficiary and what percent of that account goes to them. So even if you're just starting out, when you don't have a will, or maybe you don't have kids yet, or whatever the need, or you're working on the will, at least go in there and set those beneficiaries. That's a pretty quick process.
Yeah, that in full disclosure, that's one of the mistakes I had was the secondary beneficiary. I forgot to put my son on there. And he was born at the end of 19. So my daughter had everything in one of the accounts. He didn't have anything. So I made it up to him this year. I gave him 34% instead of 33%. My two daughters got 33%. So his secondary beneficiaries.
There'd be some fighting over some money there.
Yeah, they fight over a lot of stuff already, but they're good kids. They're fun. But yeah, that was one of the mistakes. And I had a few other just minor stuff, but yeah, it's something to be aware of. I think a lot of people talk about it, and at least in my circle, I think a lot of people forget to kind of follow through on all of those kind of planning issues that you hope never need to come into play. But it's always good to do it. We've had probably a handful on the podcast so far that have had situations like that. And at some point it will come into play, right? Like we're all going to pass at some point, but something to be aware of. And the other thing too is just looking at your insurances and, are you covered? Are you over covered, under covered? And, especially looking at umbrella policies, that's something that I got to reevaluate every year and figure out what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not. And, looking at everything as a holistic financial view. Some people will go meet with a financial planner or advisor to do that. But something to be aware of and keep in mind as we kind of move into 2022, especially with people's valuations and, investments going up so significantly over the last year or two.
Now's a good time to do it.
Yep. So this week we have Mike. He's 41 years old, works as a police officer. He has 3 kids. His net worth is $1.5 million. Last week's episode we had JC. He was 70 years old, retired, spends a significant amount of his time traveling in his RV around the country with his wife. Definitely one of our most seasoned guests. He started his career in the military, serving a couple different branches. He was also a bartender in various states, which is interesting. I think he's probably been one of the only bartenders we've had on the show, or at least told us that was one thing they did in their career. Eventually moved into electronics and finished his career out at Apple. He had a net worth of $2.2 million and made 90% of his wealth after he was 50, which is quite interesting given that we haven't had very many people over 50. Once again, if you'd like to submit a question to Ask a Millionaire, you can do that on our website, on our SpeakPipe, or send us an email. We'll be happy to address it, or send it to Ask a Few Millionaires when we do the interviews on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Also, we have call out if we've got any business owners that are interested to be on the show. We've had a few guests write in that they would like to hear from some more business owners. So we'd love to have you on the show. Without any further delay, let's get into the episode with Mike.
Mike, thanks for joining us and welcome to the call.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about you. Give us a little elevator pitch about who Mike is.
I'm 41. I'm a police officer here in the Cincinnati area. I've been at the same police department for 21 years now. I got 3 kids, a 14-year-old, 12, and 10. Current net worth sits at about $1.5 million, and I'm a pretty simple index investing kind of guy.
Okay, awesome. And let's just go into the 1.5 first, and then we'll go into your story a little bit. So, and I think, by the way, you're only the second police officer we've had on the show here. So the 1.5 million, how is it broken up?
I got about 700,000 all in my 457 plan. And like I said, it's all in index funds. I get about 535,000 in the Vanguard S&P 500 fund. And then the remaining is in the Vanguard Extended Index Market Fund. And then about 10,000 just in my checking account. And then my pension is valued at 825,000 right now. And other than that, I'm like I said, I'm pretty simple. I keep my accounts. Everything is carefree and as simple as possible.
So you don't include your house in net worth, right?
No, I've got about probably 250,000 in home equity, but I just look at it as a place to live. And I use my net worth as if I stopped working tomorrow, what is going to bring me income and how am I going to live? And, unless I sold my house or changed how I was living with my housing costs, that $250,000 is not coming to me. So I don't really include that right now.
Yeah. And is it the same thinking for, you have an IRA, right? For one of your kids or all your kids and education savings account, same thinking there?
Yeah. I mean, I actually started Roth IRAs for all 3 of my children. I joke with my 14-year-old, he's probably the first kid that's got a IRA before a cell phone. So I said he'd probably understand that when you get a little bit older. But yeah, they all got Roth IRAs that I help contribute to. They all work a little bit. And other than that, that's all in their names. And I'm just a custodian.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how much do you contribute to each of those? And at what age did you start them?
The 14-year-old, I max his out. I do the 6,000. He works enough with, he's a caddy and soccer referee, and he does enough to where he makes that 6,000 income. I started that when he was 12. And then I just started one for my, 9-year-old and then, 11-year-old just turning 12 here last year. And both of them, right, I just put right about $1,000 into theirs.
So the 14-year-old that you started when 12, so let's call it, I don't know, 2 or 3 years of contribution. So the balance is what, like 20 to 25 grand or so? 20 to 23 grand?
Yeah, he's sitting right about there. Yep.
Wow. And what's it used for? Are you going to use it for education? You're just going to gift it to him? What's the plan?
My plan is he's already down the path where I, show him what it is and how it works. And I want to educate him so he understands what it is. And, whatever he wants to use it for, it's up to him. It's all in BTSAX. And if he wants to use some of it for college, he could, because it'll be over that 5-year rule. If he wants to get a scholarship, if he doesn't want to go to college, if he wants to save it for retirement or starting a business, he can use it as he sees fit. Yeah.
What does he think about it? I'm trying to think what I would think if I had that when I was 14 years old. I probably wouldn't have fully understood it.
No, I mean, they ask some questions, I get them all around, and, the 9-year-old just turned 10. He was just asking me driving home, where my stock's at today, Dad. So he kind of sort of understands it just from his older brother a little bit, but, I just kind of go over the statement. And when the statement comes every month, we just go through it. So he understands what it's invested in and what it's meant for, and, what the Roth is for, what the IRA stands for, and just kind of the basics right now. So he doesn't give it too much thought. He just knows he has some kind of money for something.
Right. So going back to the retirement accounts, about 700,000 in the 457, you said, and most of it's in the S&P index and then other index funds. Have you always been invested that way in index funds, or has that shifted through the years?
That's shifted. I mean, I used to have all my stuff in all active management funds. I had it broken down to growth funds and value funds and emerging markets and international. And I'd say probably 12 years ago, I switched everything all to index and haven't really looked back. It is difficult every now and then when I look at some of the active funds that are in my 4, 5, 7 plan, making 60, 65% and say, man, should I have, half of my money in that, or should I put some in it? I just haven't yet, but I went all in index funds.
Yeah. So how did this all start, becoming a police officer? Is it something you always wanted to do, or career-wise? I mean, back it up to 2022. I don't know if you went to college. How did your career start?
Well, I actually went to college I wanted to be an arson investigator for the fire department. I worked for the Cincinnati Fire Department for 2 years and was going to college for arson investigation. I started that job at 18. Here in Ohio, you can become a firefighter at 18, but you got to be 21 to be a police officer. My father and his father were both police officers, so I kind of had that in the family. I just randomly kind of took the test to become a police officer at 21 as I was applying for fire departments as well, and I got hired to be a police officer first.
Wow, neat. And what's the test?
Basic civil service, physical, polygraph exams, medical evaluations. They're all pretty much the same here for all the departments.
Gotcha.
I just hired in police before fire, but I would have been fine if they won, I guess.
Yeah. And we normally get into this at the end, but if you're comfortable sharing, what was your starting salary when you started as a police officer?
I was at right about $40,000. I first started, I was working, every overtime shift I possibly could. I lived in an apartment, $300 a month, heat and water included, and I maxed out my 4, 5, 7 plan starting at 18 years old.
Wow.
And I've been there ever since.
And I'm just thinking, going back, what was the contribution limit? I guess I could look it up. I can't remember.
16.5 now. I mean, when I first started, I was working for 2 fire departments, and one of them I never even got a paycheck. The entire paycheck went in there, and I lived off the other one. And I'm trying to think what that was. It was somewhere around $8,000, I think.
Now it's doubled, I guess.
Yeah,
so you've maxed that out every year for over 20 years.
Yeah, I just backed off it here just a couple years ago when my 4, 5, 7 plan just started an account maintenance fee. I kind of got a little ticked off at that, and I reduced my contribution, and then said it's time to live a little too. So I've definitely backed down on that. I just do $800 a month now. So
how'd you know to do that, Mike? I mean, from 18, is that something your parents taught you, or did you just figure it out on your own? Well, I mean, when I was 17, 18, my dad just took me to the bank randomly one day, and we opened my first Roth IRA. I had no idea what I was doing. He just went there with me, and I handed I think it was either $2,000, $3,000 to the guy working at the bank, and said, "Here, put it in a Roth IRA." And they just put it in a mutual fund, and I kind of started my investing. And then I just say from that time to today, I just started educating myself, and I've probably read every financial blog and every financial book you could possibly name, and it's just more of a hobby to me. What's the best book you've read, or what's your favorite? Oh, man. I really, I was a diehard Dave Ramsey guy, back in the day, and I've definitely lightened up here a little bit as I've gotten older and had kids. I've read, really like all the Jack Bogle stuff, and, I was into the early retirement extreme by, Jacob Lund Fishker, if you know him, some really hardcore stuff when I was younger. I'm just a basic millionaire next door kind of guy. I have a pretty modest house, and I drive a 2001 Jeep Cherokee that I paid $12,000 for, over 20 years ago. I never had a car payment or anything like that, and been kind of that simple investor index fund kind of guy. Wow, you've had it for 20 years. It's amazing. Yeah. How many miles on that? 139,000. That's it? You got a while. Get rid of that thing, and I say, I'm going to put another 100,000 miles on it. I drive it. You're going to have it another 15 years. Back. That's about it. Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned you were into Dave Ramsey, and now it's kind of fallen off a little. How come? Or you said once you had kids, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I was very extreme on no debt, and I just lived on a very strict, tight budget to where I passed on a Reds game here and there if it wasn't in the budget. And once I had the kids and stuff, I don't know, maybe call me mortal or something. I just realized that I have enough money that I'm gonna be fine in my retirement, and anything I would need to do that
I've kind of lightened up on, I had a 15-year mortgage on my first house, and I took a 30-year on the second one, even though I'm paying it as a 15. I backed off my 4-5-7 plan a little bit. Those are things that were very foreign to me and I would never have done. But I guess just getting older is what caused that change a little bit.
So you've been in the same house for the last 20 years as well, or how long you own the house?
I've been in the same house since 2012. Before that, this is the second house I've owned. The first one I took a 15-year mortgage on, and we lived there, almost 14 years. So I almost had it paid off, and we changed houses for school districts, which was a very stressful time trying to reset the mortgage and know I'm going back into debt again, knowing I was almost at the finish line to be totally debt free.
Yeah.
It's worked out well. The kids are in a good school and I have a mortgage and life is okay. It'll be just fine.
So on the new home or the home you've been in since 2012, you decided to get a 30-year versus a 15.
Yeah, I did the 30. When we moved into this house, my wife, she wasn't working. So we were just living off my income. I did that just in case we needed to have some kind of a money for our cash flow. So I pay it as a 15-year, but it is a 30. The interest rates are so low that there isn't much difference in them. My wife is now back to working full time, so we can really, plow money into that mortgage if we wanted to.
Yeah. What's the rate on it?
2.5.
Oh, wow. You got it cheap.
We just found out my youngest there at 9 was diagnosed with dyslexia this year. So we were able to send him to this private school that specializes in dyslexia that, like $25,000 a year to go there. And, just things like that are coming up in life I can do. And if I don't want to put that extra mortgage payment down that month, we can go to this school or something for a short amount of time to get his problems fixed up.
And is that supposed to be like a shorter term fix, or is it supposed to attend for a couple of years, or how does that work?
They say it's about a 2-3 year program, and then they go back to the school they came from. So he's just finishing almost his first year there, and it's been absolutely life changing. It's been difficult, like I said, to spend that money. It's difficult for me to do and look at that, but you can't really put a price tag on it. So I think.
Yeah, what would you do if you hadn't saved all this and been financially responsible? That'd be tough to not be able to send someone to something like that if there was a need.
Yeah, it's that's kind of where I'm at. My income definitely exceeds my needs and wants, and when things come up, whether we're on spring break in Florida during coronavirus and they locked down the entire state of Ohio, well, we just added another week and 2 on our vacation. It was no big deal. When my son's diagnosed with dyslexia, we look around and find this crazy expensive private school that specializes, and we can go there without adjusting or having any major problems in our life to afford that. And that's kind of, how we live. And so it's definitely allowed me to do a lot of things for what I was able to do younger and, work some overtime shifts and invest some money, things I don't really remember now that allow me to be in a very good position sitting at 41 years old.
Okay, let's take a quick break from the episode with Mike and thank our sponsor Wix for sponsoring today's show. Whether you're starting your online business or you've got a side hustle, you can design a site to showcase your brand that'll look great on any device. So take your business online with Wix, W-I-X, the leading website creation platform that has all the tools you need to create, manage, and grow your brand. Join over 200 million people. 200 million, Jace. People already using Wix's wide range of solutions to enhance their businesses. Plus, with enterprise-grade security built into every site, you're in safe hands. You can manage everything from one dashboard on desktop and mobile, so you can be available anywhere at any time, in the office, at home, or on the go. So when we started Millionaires Unveiled, so we should have used Wix, right, Jace, to get it going here. So want to get started? Head over to Wix.com and create your website today. And let's get back into the interview with Mike.
So do you talk to your kids about money? I know we talked about the IRAs a little bit, but do you talk to them more about it? And what's the plan going forward in generational wealth? Have you and your wife decided how you're going to either pass that money on or give it away, or what your plans are there?
Well, that's where I'm starting to look now. I've got 3 years left and I could actually retire with my pension if I wanted to. In the state of Ohio, they have a thing called the DROP program, which is a deferred retirement option program, which it's kind of like you're retired but get hired back. I run some of the numbers on that and puts me, upwards of $6+ million in my early 50s if I would do that. And for me, it's pretty simple. That's a lot of money. It's just obscene numbers that I'm never going to be able to spend. And don't really believe in just giving it all to my children or anything like that. That's why I kind of opened the Roths now. I believe in kind of transferring some of that wealth while I'm still alive, and they can use some of it. And then what to do with that? That's a good question. I haven't really gotten there yet. And there's things that I'm starting to work on with that and tax implications. And I've always been so focused on saving. And now I'm sitting here saying, well, I need to start looking at withdrawing.
That's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, I guess I could have other problems. You're right.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're a millionaire next door type of guy. Does that mean any friends or family know of your wealth or not at all?
I don't know. I mean, my friends at work and coworkers, they know I drive a 2001 car, and they know I've been maxed out in my 457 plan, and my parents and brothers the same way, but I don't think that they would think it's to the level that it's at with the compounded interest over the years, because we're not flashy or anything like that, but I don't feel like I'm a millionaire at all. And, my wife definitely doesn't either if you'd ask her. So it's kind of one of those weird things. I know when you guys interviewed your spouse, or that one quote where she said, some days I felt like we were rich, some days enrolling in it, and other days I didn't know if we were going to lose a house. I think that's kind of what my wife says. I show my wife some of these numbers, and she laughs at me and doesn't understand it and says, those aren't real because we haven't changed our lifestyles.
Yeah, right. We're not spending it anyway. So where's the money?
Yeah. I said, we're going to have a great retirement, though. That's all I keep telling her. Great retirement.
Do you guys travel a lot? Or is there something that you do splurge on?
We just went to Yellowstone here just a few months ago. I guess I went to Florida for spring break. We go to Hilton Head in the summers. We haven't really lived some crazy deprived lifestyle. I mean, it has not been anything that if we need to go out and buy something or need something, we get it. We don't deprive ourselves to the point of that. We just aren't buying a new car. I just got my first smartphone here probably a year ago. I've been a flip phone guy for a while. I never really needed a flip phone or a smartphone. Thought it would do anything for me. It's not. We just don't have many wants, I would say, is what it is.
Gotcha. And within the police department, those that you work with, is money talked about often? Are other people as aggressive in the sense of maxing out their retirements as you are, or are you unique in that way?
I'd say it's about 50-50. Half of the people I work with, they are young. They have big diesel trucks. They're in debt up their eyeballs. They work a ton of overtime shifts just to spend more, and they don't give a second thought about it. And then the other half, they do save. They can catch someone like myself or an older officer that's kind of, giving them some education when they first started to say, start putting some money here before you do anything else. It's been interesting to watch. We've had a few officers pass away in the line of duty here in the region just this year. So it's always that borderline thing where people are kind of reckless because they know it's a dangerous profession. So they might not be here tomorrow, but then they don't save anything and retirement comes and they're broke. So it's kind of 50-50. Depends on, I guess, just the officer and the employee.
Is it talked about often, or is it not really? I mean, I guess in any normal workplace, it's really not talked about unless you're close with somebody or with a friend.
It's probably average. We have the people that come in from these investment companies that want to try and sell things or try and hook up and be the financial advisors. And so that, they all go to the monthly meeting and stuff, but they don't really understand it. And many of them just come to me and say, hey, what do I do with this? Where should I invest my money? Or you just tell me what to do. And I really want them to understand what they're doing on their own and trying to educate them a little bit. And I mean, a lot of the problems I see is not just investing. It's whether it's their marriages, going through divorces, those kind of things are big things that just crush their finances and their cars and stuff. Those are the big things that get them, as opposed to if they put their money in an index fund or an actively managed fund.
Yeah. So did you ever invest in the market outside of those retirement accounts, just like in a traditional normal investment account or no?
I did. Like I said, when I was 17, 18, I opened my Roth IRA, and along with being maxed out in my 457 plan, I maxed out my Roth every year. I did that. I just had a couple single stocks that I had throughout the years. That's kind of one of my biggest mistakes. If I could go back in time, when we bought this house in 2012, I took out about $125,000 from my Roth IRA and put it into buying this house and remodeling this entire house. And it was a tough thing for me because I was so scared of debt at that point. My wife wasn't working. We had one income. I just didn't want to take on any debt. But looking back, I wish I would have maybe taken half of that out or none of it out at all and taken more of a mortgage.
Just because you have it at such a low rate now, you're saying?
Yeah. And if you look at our mortgage payment and stuff, we could double, triple it and still be totally fine with today's standards and numbers for our income. And for me to, not take an extra $500 a month on a mortgage to take out $125,000 in Roth IRA, knowing what that would be today if I'd have left that in there, and knowing what that would be today in 20 years, it was a terrible financial decision and move. But it was a learning lesson for me that I'd overinvested and I didn't have any money on hand if I needed to make a major purchase like that other than debt. So I was so scared to take out additional debt. That's why I did that. And
it's Dave Ramsey, right? I mean, Jason and I are both the same. We talk, and a lot of our millionaires that come on the show are the same, right? Where you get so involved in Dave Ramsey and think that that's so bad. And I mean, to each their own. Some of our millionaires have no debt, and most of them actually are just like you, where they don't rush to pay off the home because it's at such a low interest rate.
Yeah, and that's where I'm sitting now. I mean, I don't, I could direct some more money into my mortgage and really aggressively try and knock that out here very quickly. And I'm saying, well, I've got kids here that are going to go to college soon and aren't going to be young forever, and maybe taking a vacation here and there. So I'm trying to find more of a balance with it.
Right. And has that been hard to change that mindset to have that shift of spending more versus saving more?
Yeah, it's been a little difficult, not too terribly bad, because we haven't gone to such an extreme of splurging and buying new cars and, just like blowing the money. We've spent it on, like I said, my child's education and just a little bit more fun type stuff. I'm not going to, to make that adjustment. I will never be the person that's going to make that adjustment just to buy toys or things, that kind of stuff. But I would do it for kind of education and experiences. And
sure,
it's been rewarding. I'm glad I've done it because, like I said, I'm getting older. So, the kids are getting older too. And you only have that time once.
Yeah. Have you ever used a financial advisor?
When my wife and I got married, she had a financial advisor with Merrill Lynch. So when we merged our accounts, I briefly used who she had, and it was not a very good experience. I was in the phase of my life where I was really kind of educating myself and learning more and more. And I was just looking at some of these funds I'm in at, 2 to 3% fees. And we would get things in the mail where every single stock and mutual fund we owned was sold, and then they was all put into gold, or the next month it was all sold and put into whatever they thought the hot, mutual fund or stock was for the month.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like that. I mean, I remember calling the guy and asking if he could, speak to us before he sold anything. And, he said, I'm a full service broker and we don't really do that. And, that's kind of when I just left Merrill Lynch and put everything to Vanguard and put everything in index funds, and I haven't touched it since then.
Oh, that's interesting. Good for you. So the financial advisors are those that come into the police department. How does that work? They just come in and try and make a connection with somebody and be hired as their financial advisor or something? Or how do they get that in?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, back in my younger days when I had, thought I was going to go into real estate or start a business, all these things on the side that I had ideas on, that was one of my things I wanted to do, was become some kind of a financial advisor to police officers or firefighters and nurses and teachers. That's what I wanted to do. And then there's a guy that actually lives in the same city as me. He has a financial advising firm, and he's actually come into our department and a lot of the departments here in the Cincinnati region. They're just from the retirement accounts, the 457 plans. So they are financial advisors, from those companies that come into the departments and just give kind of spiels. And he's actually offered me a job and said, when you retire here in 3 years, you're more than welcome to come do that as a job. So as much as I don't have the best opinion of financial advisors, it might be a retirement gig for me.
There you go. You can change the mindset of people about financial advisors.
Yeah. I mean, they're not, I just struggle with what are charged from them.
Fees. Yep. Knowing how easy it is now. I mean, especially, I think Vanguard has them too, but I go through Fidelity and they have, I think, at least 4 zero fee index funds: total market, large cap, small cap, and international. Zero fee index funds that you could buy in a Roth and in just a traditional investment account or anything. So hard to compete with that, really.
Yeah, I like more of the financial planning, the overall thing to go through.
Yeah.
Bills and everything, more than just the investing and selling of a mutual fund or selling of a stock.
Yeah, and there's certainly some of that, especially if you start getting into wills, right? And setting up accounts for your children and tax planning.
Yeah, I think that's definitely my next step and stage that I need to head into is looking at some more of that. And, I might actually, get some kind of financial help for that because that is foreign to me. And what's the best way to withdraw some of this money, as I get a little bit older here? What's the best way to set, some of these things up for my children, or how does all that work? And probably where I'm heading next.
Yeah. Do you remember how old you were when you became a millionaire? You're at 1.5 now.
Well, when I started out, at 18 to 21, starting in the fire service, I wanted to be debt free at 35 and hit my first million at 40. And that was just, money in the bank when, I didn't include my pension in that. With us moving to this next house, I didn't meet my goal of being debt free at 35, 100%. I would still say at 40, I was a millionaire if you go by net worth for sure. If you just go money in the bank, it was at about 36 if you would throw my home equity in there.
Yeah. And you mentioned debt free. Are you talking outside the mortgage, or did you have student loans or anything like that?
No. I guess I worked 2 jobs at a fire department and paid my way through college as I went. And I've never taken any car payment out, or I've never used a credit card. Just got my first credit card just probably 2 years ago in my life. The only debt I've ever had in my life has been a mortgage.
And did you work a lot more or overtime early on in your career to make more?
Yeah. My wife joked how much I worked that, she never saw me, and I did. I worked. I worked a lot. Starting at 18 in the fire service, we worked these 24-hour shifts, and I wouldn't come home for 2-3 days sometimes. And, especially when we had our kids were very, very young, and she stopped working completely. I worked a lot. And so, now she's got a full-time job, and overtime shifts come up, and it's no big deal if I work them or don't work them. And it's been definitely a shift and change for us here with our working structure.
So you said 24-hour shifts?
Yeah, that's what, in the fire department, we would work 24, 48. So one day and then off for 2. But in those 2 days off, I would just go work another job. So I'd work at either a second fire department, or that's when I would go to college. I would do things on those 2 days off.
So did you graduate college?
Yep. I graduated from the University of Cincinnati. I got a bachelor's degree, and I've looked at even getting a master's degree now just to go further. But like I said, I'm struggling to look at the cost of college and debating it for my children, and just on a cost basis issue is, what is that going to do to get me a master's degree? It's not going to do anything different as far as how much I'm going to make it with my position in the police department, or it's not going to stop me from getting promotion if I would want to. It'd be more just an interesting thing for an educational, and it's just not worth it. $25,000 to me.
It's pretty amazing though, Mike, that you were working 2 jobs and going to school part-time.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't even collect one paycheck from one fire department. The whole thing went into my 457 investment account. So, even though I didn't start the police department until I was 21, I already had my 457 plan started from when I was 18. I already had big bucks in there that was already starting to compound. Wow.
It's amazing. Getting such a young start too, and contributing every year since 18. I think you may be the first or the youngest we've had that's done that.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I want to pass on my kids there, where I thought it was crazy to start my 14-year-old's IRA. And I said, well, I can put a few $100 here in my 9-year-old's because he's actually working a little bit too. He qualifies. So why not? So I started his as well.
Wow, good for you. So let's shift gears here a little bit and talk about the pension, about $825,000 in that, correct?
Yeah, where I'm sitting, I have almost 22 years in. So that's like 33% of my, the average of my highest 5 years. I make right at $100,000. I just take, about $33,000 and times that by 25. It gives me the $825,000. I kind of live off that 4% rule. And once I do 3 more years, that 33% will be 60% of my pension. And that just goes up from there. For every year I go past 25 years, it goes up 1.5% more.
So the longer you work, the more it vests, or the more you get, I guess.
Yeah.
And is there a cutoff? Do you have to work a certain amount of years to be eligible at all?
You have to be 15 years to be vested. So I'm there with that. So that's why I have it in my net worth. So if I left tomorrow, or I got injured, or, society crumbles, which, with everything going on, I just don't want to do the job anymore. I could walk away and I would get that value of the pension, that day I left.
And how does it get paid out? Is it annually for the rest of your life?
Yep. It's annually the rest of your life. They have made some changes to it. You used to get a, guaranteed 3% cost of living increase. That's on an adjusted basis now. There's some things in there with if you take the full 100%, or when you pass away, it goes down for what your spouse gets. Like I said, my dad, but he's been retired now for 23 years as a police officer. So I've kind of watched his pension and the mistakes he's made and things he would do differently. Has kind of educated me on that.
Yeah. So right now you'd be at $33,000 a year?
Yeah, I'd be at $33,000. And if I do 3 more years, I'd be at, roughly $60,000 a year.
Wow. That's a big jump.
Yeah. The full amount is when you hit the 25-year mark in the state of Ohio.
I mean, that for you guys, I mean, don't let me put words in your mouth here, but that's about, you're not going to spend more than 60 a year, are you?
No, that's why I really backed off my 4-5-7 plan and my investing and said, what am I doing here? I've got right now what I would be comfortable living the exact same life as I have now. And if I would do another 5-10 more years, I'm going to have, more money than I would ever even know what to do with just personally. I'm never going to be the guy that's going to go buy 5 homes or a house on the beach type stuff. And I don't,
right.
It sounds odd to say, but I don't really know what to do with that, where the
money
are going to be. Yeah. I guess it gives to my kids, and what are they going to do? I guess they'll buy the Ferrari, right?
So what do you guys as a family spend a year annually?
We're probably right around 80,000, I'd say.
And does that include the mortgage payment?
It does. That doesn't include right now. Like I said, we're spending just a little over 20 on my son's private school. That's a new expense we hit this year that hopefully will go away here in 2 years, possibly 3. 80,000 with 3 kids being involved in every activity you possibly could do as far as baseball and basketball. And so you're right. If you got rid of these 3 kids on the payroll here, I definitely would say we would easily live off of just my pension alone and wouldn't even be touching my 4 or 5.
Yeah, you get rid of the school, that's 60-ish, call it. If it's 20, and then you get rid of the mortgage, it's probably another, 20 or something all in?
Yeah.
So you'd be spending 40 a K and bringing in 60?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be dipping your principal at all.
My wife, she just started working a full-time job, and she's making, $75,000 a year. And, it's definitely cut into our time of having some days off during the week together, because I work a weird schedule and I have the random Tuesdays and Thursdays off. And we're saying to ourselves, why are you working this full-time job if we don't need the money and it's taking a lot of time up? So she might step away from that here probably when our son gets done with this private school.
So what's the answer to that? Is it because she wants to stay busy? She enjoys it?
Like I said, it was a thing to do. She was working full time as a nurse, before we had kids, and then we had kids, she stopped working. And once they got to school age and were in school full time, it was just, she went back to work. And then we're looking at each other saying, why did you go back to work? We didn't really need you to go back to work. We were living fine with you not working. And, daddy's having to spend a lot of, days here after working night shift trying to carpool and stuff. And so it's been a strain with us now being this 2 full-time working parents, which is been very foreign to us. And so that's definitely something we're looking at in our life, saying maybe we should back down to either you on a part-time job or just going back, not working at all, and we'll be totally fine.
Yeah. So along with that and looking forward, any financial goals you have? Is there a target net worth or anything you want to get to, or?
Like I said, just to maintain, I always, I had those goals at 35 and 40, and then at retirement, I always said somewhere between 3 and 5 million, and I'm definitely going to be there. If I didn't even change anything right now. So those are my financial goals. I've met them. Like I said, I need to make new goals now of how am I going to withdraw this, or what are we going to do? So how do we handle that? And that's not something I've put much thought into because I've always been so focused, like I said, on accumulating.
Yeah, so I know we've hit on, I appreciate you sharing all this and being so open. I know we've hit on a lot of advice and a couple of mistakes you've made, but I mean, when a police officer that's just starting off asks you for advice, or let's just even make it broader for somebody who's 20, 25 and just getting started, what's your advice to them?
Just start investing now. Don't wait till the next paycheck. Don't wait till the beginning of the year. Just put as much as you can starting now in that Automatic Millionaire, those kind of books and stuff. I've read all of those, and it's just something that you just need to start immediately and not worry about anything else and live off whatever is the rest of what's left over.
Yeah, it's good. It's good advice. So just in closing here, I know we've taken a lot of your time. So what does it mean to be happy or fulfilled, and has this money brought that to you along the way?
Well, I mean, for me, personally, I'm a big person on security. So it's brought me a sense of security and calm. Like I don't have any worries or concerns, financially. And I think just as much of accumulating the money has been the lifestyle that I've led, that I don't want or need for much, to where I need to have a high income or high investments to keep up with that lifestyle. So it's given me security to be able to take care of my family, my children. I can help my children out with as much or as little of college if we choose to. I can retire in 3 years if I want to, at 44 years old, and go do a whole second career if I want to. I could work till I'm 50, 55 years old at the same job and, double my net worth. It's just given me options and security have been the two big things that, it's really helped me out on.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking to that, what's the motivator for you now? Deep down, what motivates you to keep working and keep doing this? Is it that security?
Well, I mean, I'm not one of those officers that hates their job. I don't mind going to work. I actually enjoy work. Whether it's being a police officer or a firefighter, or back when I worked for a lawn company or a golf course, like I enjoy working. I think that we are made to work and have a purpose, and I'm not going to be laying around the beach all day. That's fun for a week or two, but that stuff gets old. And, I think that, what keeps me going is just, I like being around people, and, my job is fulfilling in other ways. It's been difficult to hear the last year and two with a lot of stuff going on in society, but there is still a lot of positives to it. And, I find more satisfaction out of helping someone with a flat tire now than maybe, arresting someone for a crime that I would have enjoyed more at a younger age. Or just helping people on a daily basis is something you just can't find in other jobs, and it is rewarding.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, and thanks for what you do. You hit on it, right? In the last couple of years, it's been a wild time. So thank you there. And thanks for coming on. And,
yeah, no
just in summary, everyone, that's Mike, net worth of $1.5 million, coming up on a $60,000 pension here as a police officer. So thanks again for joining. Thanks for sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Clark.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Clark Sheffield and Chase Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website at millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.